connect with a lot of people on a lot of different things, but it's not the same connection like what we have, because there's layers, right? I
Sure.
can have a good conversation with ladies about gardening, and we have the same passion about flower gardening or something like that. But then now what do we talk about? Like, there's not the depth to it. And so
Sure.
I don't think you can go deep there's only a few select people that you can really go deep with. And that's the friendship level that he's talking about. Not, I can make good connections broadly with a lot of different people.
And they have to make connection back to you.
Welcome to the Simplified Organization Podcast, 15-minute conversations with real moms about managing home and family life cheerfully to the glory of God. We can actually enjoy housework and love being homemakers when we focus on truth and work with gratitude. I'm Mystie Winckler, homeschooler, homemaker, and author of the book, Simplified Organization, Learn to Love What Must Be Done. I write and podcast at Simply Convivial, and I run Convivial Circle, a community helping women to excel at homemaking and do life cheerfully. And today I have part 2 of a conversation about friendship using C.S. Lewis's book, The 4 Loves. I brought together 3 ladies who have formed a friendship after meeting inside Convivial Circle. Karen Head, Adelaide Garner, and Kate Myers talk about friendship. In part 1, we talked about the first part of 4 Loves, where C.S. Lewis talks about what makes a friendship and different from other relationships. And in this part of our conversation, we get into potential pitfalls of friendship, as well as how friendship is the same or different from other relationships. Grab a basket of laundry to fold, and let's dig in.
Okay, I will say that in reading Lewis's initial assessment of friendship, that it is the crown of life, I do take problem with that. It seems like it is an over elevation of friendship, that it's this means of self-actualization. And I think that I wrote down, it seems like we've forsaken family and duty so much and elevated the self that there's that it's like this is the pinnacle.
I think
Whereas
I'm going to push back.
Okay.
So,
okay. However, I think that our modern view of friendship, where it's merely kind of an acquaintance and it's only the clubbableness that Lewis talks about, that isn't the correct view either. I think where he really hits the nail on the head is the co-laborers, that you, like you're saying, Kate, like you're on a mission together, and there's this working alongside each other. Sometimes that literally looks like a bunch of women in the kitchen preparing postpartum meals for another woman together, or just intellectually we're on a mission together, which is where I would say the 3 of us are in our friendship.
Yeah.
But I think there has to be, I think, a rootedness in reality and duty that is accompanied by kind of this intellectual stimulation too.
C.S. Lewis was a man who lost his mother very early. He was a man who grew up with his brother in an isolated way, and then went to a school where he was badly treated. He came through that, and then went into a private friendship and a mentorship relationship with a good professor, and then was sent to school, sent to war, came back to school. All of his life has been centered not on family relationships, on friendships. And in that war, that is one of the places where our world changed. Like the war that he went through wasn't a common war. It was the war to end all wars. And in those trenches, you had friends and brothers, and that was it.
Sure.
And then he grows up and has one of the most famous friendships in the world.
Right.
There is no way, and after that friendship, he met and married
Joy. Yeah.
And arguably, his relationship with her was also a friendship.
Right. It was a little unusual.
This is how he met people and how he interacted and engaged. And he delighted who they were. This is how he wrote his books. They're friends, even in The Great Divorce. Like, you have friends meeting friends saying who they are. And they do discuss all these outside ideas. The piece where in the following chapters on charity, he talks about how there's humility and realizing that you're the person being loved out of proportion. And this is something that happens in friendships too, where it's like, you have a need, the other person has the gift. They know that and they extend it. And then our pride is struck. And of course, that's the beam that has to be tried. And in The Great Divorce, there's a man who's like, I've done all this. I'm right. I know my own thoughts. I have ideas. And his friend looks at him and he's like, you got to take the bleeding charity. And that's what we need. Like, we need someone to tell us to take the bleeding charity. And sometimes that's a friend on the internet, and sometimes it's our husband, and sometimes it all comes back to having someone who knows you and also knows that you can hold things in proportion for them and is able to say, this is Christ for you in this moment. And so friendship for Lewis was the place.
Still sounds like co-laboring to me.
It does. And I think that C.S. Lewis had a limited view of marriage.
I'm thinking what seems like it would be like the crown of life is a covenant relationship, which would be marriage, and how refining that is. Because in some ways, it is easier to be friends with someone because you're not having to rub elbows with them in the same house and everything.
Is C.S. Lewis being Gnostic? Is he saying that there's no physical reality, that there's no tangible peace that we are all required to go after providing for?
I don't think he's saying that, but it does feel like he's minimizing that or something. Right. And it was funny to me.
So he does say, perhaps we may not hazard a guess why Scripture uses friendship so rarely as an image of the highest love. It is already, in actual fact, too spiritual to be a good symbol of spiritual things. The highest does not stand without the lowest. God can safely represent himself to us as father and husband because only a lunatic would think that he is physically our sire or that his marriage with the church is other than mystical. But if friendship were used for this purpose, we might mistake the symbol for the thing symbolized. The danger inherent in it would be aggravated. We might be further encouraged to mistake the nearness, by resemblance, to the heavenly life, which friendship certainly displays for a nearness of approach. And so I think that there's a piece of it that he recognizes that the marriage relationship is what the Bible has as the ultimate relationship. But there is something special and very unique, because he said in there very clearly, we can all do without friendship. We will survive. The world will go on without friendship. But there is something special and elevated about having that sort of a friendship, and how he contrasts that to comradeship. And I think some of what you're talking about, Adelaide, actually falls more into that comradeship of how he would define it, being the co-laborer piece. Like, there's not really a connection. We just have work to do and we're going to get in and do it. But because he talked about, like, there are people, like the men would hunt together, but there was some that would become actual friends. And it was because there was some other connection other than just the hunting. It was how they saw a truth the same. And I think that's where he's trying to divide the two out at.
I did think it was interesting how he brought up that the whole bringing together component is that, do you see the same truth as me? But you don't always necessarily have to agree on it. To a certain extent, I think you do. But one of my very closest friends, she is a believer and she loves the Lord, but we do have some different theological convictions and some different convictions on some other things. But that's never inhibited the intimacy in our friendship, because we still care very deeply about the same things. We're still asking, do you see the same truth that I do? And so I definitely agreed with that, I guess. And maybe this is just my limited perspective, I'm sure, but it doesn't seem like I've ever really had comrades that couldn't then become dear friends, that the people I'm around there's already kind of a quota of why we're going to be around each other in the first place. Are we all going to church together? Are we all homeschooling together? There's things that I would say most of us are doing that kind of separate us out from the herd already. Maybe that.
But are you more relationally minded? Like you're naturally.
But that's what's funny too.
Yeah.
Because
what's
otherwise some of us wouldn't
sure
actually see other people as potential friends. Okay.
And that's what's funny about him saying that it's so unnatural. And I would say, no, I can meet someone at the grocery store and sense a kindredness.
That is not normal.
I think I would argue that you're going more for the comradeship than the actual friendship, because I can connect with a lot of people on a lot of different things, but it's not the same connection like what we have, because there's layers, right? I can have a good conversation with ladies about gardening, and we have the same passion about flower gardening or something like that. But then now what do we talk about? Like there's not the depth to it. And so I don't think you can go deep there's only a few select people that you can really go deep with, and that's the friendship level that he's talking about. Not I can make good connections broadly with a lot of different people.
And they have to make connection back to you. And I think that's something that I know Karen struggled with. And Adelaide, I think you can make friends with everybody.
I'm pretty good at making friends with people.
Receiving back what you hand to people. To be able to send someone a random Voxer about Aristotle and your day. That is very special and should be valued. You're not just going to throw something about Aristotle into a random conversation. I
probably would.
Yeah, but it would also
but that weeds people out.
It wouldn't land. And so when you find someone it lands with, you kind of make a note that there's someone that
you too.
Yeah, you too.
That Lewis talks about.
So the ordering of our friendship, where it was like, I want a 6 skills person to talk to, and Karen chimes in, I'd be interested if there's failure of nerve involved, and then Adelaide says, I'll do it too. That was great because it was like this and then plus this, all of us agreeing, and then Adelaide saying, let's do this thing, and then that worked out.
But I think also it's the same idea. And so you know what the friendship's about, but you have the same mission, that it's all aiming toward a shared vision for a purpose in discussing it. It's not just theoretical.
And we're not sitting here chatting about other people.
Right.
Literally the ideas.
Yes.
Because I think that the 6 skills thing can devolve into, I'm just going to talk about my husband all the time. But when we're sitting here pulling these ideas and how to push for truth and push for awareness of what we're doing, is that what it is?
Yes.
So he talks about that the attitude of the majority towards all circles of close friends, every name they give such a circle is more or less derogatory. It is at best a set, lucky if not a couture, a gang, a little synod, or a mutual admiration society. Those who in their own lives know only affection, companionship, and eros suspect friends to be stuck-up prigs who think themselves too good for us. Of course, this is the voice of envy, but envy always brings the truest charge, or the charge nearest to the truth that she can think up. It hurts more. This charge, therefore, will have to be considered. But I think there's a piece of that, there could easily have been, in our 6 skills discussion, they're kind of stuck up because they're always talking about failure of nerve and this, and we just want to talk about how to make our marriages better. There's that piece that it's a niche. The friendship becomes a niche thing and not just, again, at a surface level in general. And we have good interaction with the others in that general marriage category and practical, how do we apply it? But there was that piece of wanting to go deeper, and it does become it can appear to be like a stuck up thing because you just have such pointed interest.
And you don't want to turn into those people that were at the end of the chapter who are like, this is, what was the specific phrase?
I probably underlined it.
They were the 2, what were they, pastoral students or something, who were chatting about things, and Lewis, and they laugh at, yes, Lewis, guys. They laugh at him. And then he says something like, a professor would, and they don't receive it. Like they're unable to receive the criticism he's bringing. And this brings the friendship part where he talks about friendship as a means for that correction. Like there's that
that it can be the place of virtue or vice. Is that what you're?
It's a place of virtue.
It makes me also think about where he's talking about how friendship has to be exclusive, but it can go from the innocent and necessary act of excluding to the spirit of exclusiveness. And you can then start to think that you're merely souls and that you're so much more enlightened. Yes. And that a little bit before that, the danger that this partial indifference or deafness to outside opinion may lead to a wholesale indifference or deafness, that you can really just become an echo chamber, which is, I think, the importance I think of where he does mention, again, like this school of, it can be a school of virtue or vice, that it can make good men better and bad men worse. Like, I think of it as like the iron sharpening iron. You have to have a sense of, I can tell these people they need to, I can rebuke them, they can rebuke me. And as I've gotten older and really begun to learn what Christian friendship is about, you really cannot be friends with somebody unless you give them permission to expose you, and they've given you permission to do the same.
Which is what he
had. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Because they're okay. So his
and there's just a richness that's able to be there. It's repenting and rejoicing. Yeah.
To link with what you said, and also go with the failure of nerve thing, when he said friends are less easy to manage to get at, and harder for good authorities to correct and bad authorities to corrupt. Like, it's not just that you can protect and set yourself apart, it's that in the differentiation, you actually have something that like protects you in a weird way, like that you can.
Yeah.
And I think for moms, especially when we're alone at home on our own, it's easy to be vulnerable to everything. It doesn't matter if someone says licking the floor of the grocery store is probably going to make your child sick. You suddenly get worried about everything that they've ever licked. Like, and so having friends, like even at a really baseline level, can say, yeah, your kids don't lick the grocery store floor. Why would you worry about that at all?
Yeah.
It enables you to like keep a clear head and just keep your chin up and move on with your day. And when something's really wrong, like if you have a child doing something crazy, your friends can also remind you that this will pass and they may just need subtle adjustments and corrections, or you may need to get a log out of your eye, and your friends will help you see that.
Yeah.
I think there's a less, kind of like what you're hitting at, it actually becomes like there's a less of an emotional attachment to friendship.
Yeah.
Than there is with like the affection or with the eros, that sort of thing. Like in affection and eros, some of your identity is tied up in the other person. And with the friendship, the identity remains its own thing apart from the friendship. And so like you can come in, and when I'm having a bad day and in tears, you can come in and like, it's not a big deal. Get over it yourself.
I can hold things in proportion for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas
that all of us have to different things. And we need someone else to say, this is actually only this big. And to you, this is this big.
I hope you have camaraderie in your local community. When you work side by side with other women and have ladies you can talk shop with, over time, or maybe out of the blue, suddenly you might realize that there is a guiding principle and similar vision and mission between you and one or two other ladies that you can then pursue into true friendship. But that true friendship does begin by having ladies you can talk shop with. Consider starting a book club, or just don't be embarrassed to bring up your current homemaking struggles and growth points in your life right now, so that you can talk shop with the ladies in your circles. And then stay tuned for part 3, where we're going to get into Anne of Green Gables and what we learn about friendships from Anne. Stay tuned.